All right, we are live. Episode 249, 250 next week, fellas.
Wow.
Yeah, it's actually nuts to think that. How are we doing? How are we feeling? How's everything? Craig, you were just saying you've been hard at work
Yeah,
deciding whether you're able to live in America or not.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, so that's a bundle of joy that I'm going through at the moment. But yeah, at least I feel okay. How about yourself, Adam?
You know, I'm surviving. I'm surviving. But whether that persists will remains to be seen by the end of this episode. Yeah. Speaking of things that might not still be around fairly soon, we'll have to talk about De Zerbi, won't we, soon?
Yes, we will.
How are you, Josh?
Yeah, I'm all right. About an hour ago, I just had a wave of feeling like shit coming for me as well. So that's probably your fault, Adam.
It's going to be a high energy podcast for
yeah.
the listeners, isn't it? Yeah,
definitely. It's probably just an after effect of being in Liverpool yesterday, to be honest.
Oh yeah,
that'll do it.
I'm not able to tweet that we are live. My Twitter is just not sending posts at all.
People will figure it out.
No, that's really odd. All right, so feels like a very long international break. This one, didn't it? Like, I don't know about you two, but like, it just felt like it went on forever.
Yeah, it's what happens when you have to watch England play. Yeah, it was. It felt lengthy, but now it's back with a vengeance, isn't it? Because I didn't even realize until I just kind of looked at the fixture schedule. It's gets pretty aggressive this week, doesn't it? We've just had this game on Sunday. We then play Wednesday. Is that right? And then again on Saturday.
Yep.
Which is fairly nuts. So like 3 games in 6 days with an already fairly depleted squad. So honestly, yeah, I feel like we still need another international break again, as much as I hated this last one.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's gone so like it's weird that we're getting so many back to back again. Like it feels like we've not really progressed anywhere in European in cup competitions or anything like that, really. So for us to get piled on is pretty bad. Is it everybody? Is it like a midweek fixture list this week?
Trying to look.
Because if it is, then that explains that. It's just everyone.
Well, we've got that catch-up game, don't we, still? But I don't think that gets played this week.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is. There's a full list of fixtures this week. Forest, Fulham, Newcastle, Everton, Bournemouth, Palace.
Yeah, there's a bunch of games Tuesdays, isn't there? Yeah.
West Ham, Spurs, all Tuesday. Yeah. Arsenal, Luton, Brentford, Brighton, City, Villa. And then 2 on Thursday as well. Chelsea United are on Thursday night. Thursday afternoon for you. What should be like a great game is just like you couldn't. There's almost 8 games I'd rather watch than Chelsea United at this point. With the standard of quality from those.
I actually think it will be a good game because I don't want to see competent football anymore. Like we saw that for everyone that watched Man City Arsenal, like it's crap. Like it was boring, like absolutely horrendously boring. Like compared to that, the Brighton Liverpool game was great. It's two teams that came out, tried to make something happen. And it was an interesting game for a neutral, you would imagine. Chelsea and Man United are just incompetent enough where it could be a really, really thrilling encounter because neither manager knows how to manage. Neither set of players wants to actually play for their club. And I think it could be really interesting. It might end up being like 6-3 or something.
It's quite harsh, really, to be saying stuff like that because I have it on good authority that according to the stats, Chelsea should be 4th.
Yeah, no, they should be 4th. Yeah.
How do we feel about that? We all took the piss out of Potter a little bit, didn't we? Like, can you believe that how far Pochettino has fallen? That we're actually at a point where he's now stating like XG. He's not even going for XG. He's going for like even more like finangly data that I know you can't stand, Adam, when we start getting into XGA, SOP. Like nonsense that just doesn't make sense.
Territory, isn't it? It's just silliness.
I mean, yeah, but I can't believe they're just as bad, if not worse, than they were under Potter. It is baffling. And Cole Palmer being the one standout for them when he couldn't get into the Man City team just shows you just the chasm between what is the top three and the rest of them. But yeah, it's hilarious. So
There's also that leak that came out, wasn't there, about the players have already started revolting and saying they want Pochettino out, which, you know, despite the fact that they got rid of all that old guard that they were saying undermined every manager that had ever come in. And they were like, okay, we're starting fresh. We've got this group of young players. Well, they've just done it again, haven't they? It's just the same crap. And you get it because Pochettino is, let's face it, outside of what, a season and a half, two fairly okay seasons at Spurs, has basically been a highly incompetent manager. I don't know what
much at PSG. Yeah.
So. What were they expecting? And Chelsea continues to be Chelsea, overpaying a bunch of idiots, and then they think they run the club, and the manager has no proper authority. That's why only those proper outspoken managers like Mourinho and co have ever worked at Chelsea, because they're a bunch of entitled pricks. But anyway.
But they're in big trouble this season.
Culture problem, isn't it, too? Like, literally since the takeover, we've had this, because everyone said, oh, it's Drogba, John Terry, Lampard, they're the problem. They all retired like the dead.
It's just they've recreated the problem. But you can say the same about Man U, right? Exact same thing.
Post has broken them. Yeah.
Whereas, so think what you want about Man City, and you could probably say the same for Arsenal a little bit. And I know we're speaking with recency bias here, but City are running in a way in which, yes, their players are paid obscene amounts, but they're ruled in such a way, if you want to call it a rule, like Pep Guardiola's rule is pretty much like, if you don't abide by Pep Guardiola, you are out, and that doesn't matter. They'll replace you with someone else that's probably better. Whereas Chelsea and Man U, like Bruno Fernandes knows they're not going to sell him, so he just does what he wants. And the same for a bunch of the Chelsea players.
Yeah, I think that's what makes a great manager, though, isn't it? Like, one that's quite happy to lose a quality player, like, and on principle alone, to make sure that the rest of them follow point. Whereas so many of those managers, and really, that's why Jose never lasted any longer at Chelsea than he did. That's when he started his 3-season tradition, was at Chelsea, because he didn't back down from any of them, and they ended up signing with the players over the manager, which is really where it all started. But the good thing is Cole Palmer is English, right? And we're talking international break to start with. It's always good to have a player like that, very versatile, having a great season, in great form, very young. A player on the opposite end of the spectrum at almost 33, I think now. Albion captain Lewis Dunk is not doing himself any favors getting on the plane to Germany for the Euros this summer, is he? Can either of you see him getting on the plane to the Euros based on his 2 England performances in this international break, albeit they were only friendlies, and his start was with a back four that was actually more makeshift than the Albion's back four of late. But it was pretty poor, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, I think if you're going to judge him on those 2 games alone, then you'd say he's absolutely not going, right? But there are cases for and against, right? Like you said, you had Konza at right back, you had this very makeshift defense, and you've also got an inept manager at the heart of it as well. So there's all sort of pros and cons that you can go for, but if you're going to judge him across the last, I'd say 3 or 4 England appearances, then you're probably not taking him, right?
Yeah, it wasn't great, was it? He redeemed himself against Liverpool. I thought he was good, back to the standard Dunk we know. I'm truly of the belief that as soon as players put on an England shirt, they basically do the opposite of what they do for their clubs. They enter some alternate universe where, like, Harry Maguire actually looks fairly incompetent in an England shirt. Pickford looks fairly competent in an England shirt. And then when you get a bunch of good players, they put the English shirt on and they're just fairly crap. And I think Dunk has unfortunately fallen into that wormhole of reality. But yeah, it's Southgate, isn't it? He's rubbish. But
yeah, he is.
Dunk did not do himself favors.
No, he didn't. A couple of other things to come from the international break. Julio and Ciso injured. Only short term, apparently, should be back for possibly Arsenal and beyond. Someone who we won't be seeing again this season is Billy Gilmore, now out.
Yeah,
with a knee injury. Not sure if you'll follow him on Instagram, but his knee brace is a bad one. So he's done for the season, most likely. step up Carlos Baleba, really, isn't it? Like, and Jakub Moder, if there's ever a time for those players to step up.
Yeah, I mean that the next man up. What else are you going to do? There's no one else.
Yeah,
There's no one else.
Who's next in line? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. By the way, I thought it's weird talking about the performance. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Liverpool game a little bit, but I think everyone was fairly decent, like apart from Barco. But like mostly everyone played fairly well, despite the fact that this was a Liverpool team that came out very, very strong, very aggressive, playing at home. Alexis McAllister was transcendent, and good for him, right? He left on good terms, great seventh for this club, and he's going on to big things. But I thought Baleba and Moder were fine. Moder was playing really high up at points as well, wasn't he? Almost like as a number 10 when we had the ball.
I liked it. I thought it was good.
I kept wondering who it was. I was like, who's that tall? That's not Ferguson. He's that tall guy. And I kept confusing. I was like, why is Moder there? But it's going to be tricky when we get this run of games, right? So this 3 games in 6 days. I mean, rotation at this point is almost going to be like a bygone dream. How are you going to rotate? You've got nobody to rotate with.
I suppose after such a long break, you probably feel that in theory they shouldn't need one, right? Like, do you think that's probably part of the thing here? Like, they have a full week off after Arsenal. Like, it's not like they are doing Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. He knows that he's had a 2-week break. For a lot of the players have had a 2-week break. Some of them obviously have had international games, but like, I mean, even Dunk, like he played one game in 10 minutes, and like it's not really the same level of intensity in a friendly. So you would think that the argument will be, well, there's a bunch of players that are on the bench that will probably play against Brentford that didn't already. Your Ansu Fatis, your Buonanottes, your Lallana's and Ferguson's will probably slot in somewhere. And he might believe that's all that the rotation needs to take place at this stage, with a week off after that.
Yeah, you've got Brentford Wednesday, Arsenal Sunday. You fully expect some rotation where you can. Like Adam said, there's really no, apart from the wingers and maybe some attackers, you can swap them out. But Gross has to play in the midfield now with Gilmour out, and one of Baleba or Moder probably has to start, right? If it's not going to be Lallana. So you're going to see a lot more of Veltman at right back, or maybe even Lamptey at right back. You're not going to see any makeshift Gross at right back because you can't afford it anymore. Which some might think is a blessing or a burden, but it depends how you see it. But not a lot of rotation to be had apart from the attackers, right? Like you said, Ferguson, Fati, Buonanotte, and Ciso when he's back. Pedro is now back in training too. So we'll see. But yeah, 3 games in 6 days is never nice, despite how many weeks you've had off previously. It's still going to be tough.
I forgot to add one. Lamptey was also crap against Liverpool. So adjustment. Yeah. I thought it was interesting that we didn't see, like, you're trying to get a second goal to equalize at Anfield. You're playing fairly well at the latter part of the game. You've actually got the ball. Liverpool aren't doing a particularly great job, and he chooses not to bring Ansu Fati into the game. I thought that was fairly damning. By the way, I don't disagree, but I thought that was a statement in some ways. Whether or not De Zerbi looked at this and thought to himself, hey, we're probably going to lose in this game, or a point, is that going to make much of a difference? What matters to me is 3 points against Brentford, because that's our real competition. Maybe, but seemed weird to me. It seemed weird he didn't throw him into the mix.
Yeah, it was surprising, wasn't it? Like, if you're looking for a guy who's going to score a goal at the top level, like, in theory, on paper, you've got £1 billion asset on the bench. Why are you not using him? And I think, like you say, that's about as damning as it gets. What did you make of that lineup, though, that we brought out yesterday? For the vast majority of it, it was 5 at the back, wasn't it? With Veltman, Van Heck and Dunk, and then Estepinian and Lamptey out wide. And the midfield was Baleba, Gross and Moder. And it really just seemed like a very, as you said, variable group of players. Like, they seem to just move around a fair bit, but Moda definitely was further forward, and obviously Welbeck led the line with a dinger out wide as well. What did you make of the idea that we did not man mark in yesterday's game, and we performed a more regimented zonal marking technique that De Zerbi talked about post game, that he felt was executed really well, and kind of helped him feel a lot more pragmatic against this, well, Liverpool at Anfield, right, on a flyer. What did you make of that? Did you think that we looked more solid at the back? Did you think that, you know, that lineup was something that was the right lineup to take to Anfield? What were you thinking when you saw that 11 and De Zerbi's post-match comments about his strategy behind it?
I think, yeah, you just try and get it sort of stunk of trying to get a result, right? And rightly so, right? They've lost 2 games all season. You're away to Liverpool. We're not doing the best ourselves anyway. So there's sort of 5 at the back that turns into 2 wingers, and Lamptey and Adingra is something that, it's opinion, sorry, that works, right? And you're looking at that sort of counter press, or working through what is a very high Liverpool press, very intense, a lot of energy. So having those extra people at the back kind of works, right? For the zonal stuff, I mean, neither here nor there. I don't think it made too much of a difference, but you know, it was obviously a ploy to outnumber them in our own third, because we knew the press was coming. So you can work your way around that. The centre mid 3 were great. I liked it quite a lot. I thought Baleba was okay, Gross was okay, but I thought Moda was actually quite good, especially in the first half. Just sort of being the shadow striker as well, if you want to call it that, and helping Welbeck. So I thought it was good. In terms of the lineup, I don't think you really asked for much more, other than maybe Buonanotte for Lamptey, if you really were that inclined, because he was anonymous.
The player positioning was interesting. I think the way in which we tried to get out on the counter was almost exclusively down the left side through Adingra. And you also then, Welbeck naturally then drifted over to the left side to help alleviate some of that as well, and give Adingra an option. And then, as he does, Purvis would push up pretty high. We were overall obviously very defensive as the game went, but you have to think that the coaching staff looked at the Liverpool team and basically said, we're going to try and push against Conor Bradley and see if he is a weak link. We know that Mohamed Salah is going to be pushed really far up on the right side, so he's not going to be doing a lot of defensive work. And we know McAllister is not the greatest defensive footballer, and he's probably going to be pushed inside a little bit more and try and make plays happen. So can we do something against Conor Bradley? We saw success with that with the Dingra, but they were both quite effective against one another in some ways, because Conor Bradley actually had a really good game. But Adingra was the outlet there. You know, in terms of the back line, we've done that sort of weird transition between 5 and 4, but depending on possession quite a lot. Lamptey tried to do what Adingra is doing on the right side, but oh my God, the number of times, I think you all saw this as well. How many times did Lamptey just get out muscled and shoulder barged by Joe Gomez, and he went on the deck, and that was that? No foul, because it wasn't a foul. He's just incredibly weak. Like, really troubling. And that you can be that small, but you've got to know how to use your body. And we'll use the age-old example of Lionel Messi, right? It's not a big guy, had to have growth hormone to actually be able to properly do things. But Messi doesn't really get pushed over. Lamptey was just being thrown about by Joe Gomez.
It's the key thing here, I think, when you're looking at the difference between him and Adingra, is that burst of pace, right?
Yeah.
Like I always remember Gus Poyet about Kazenga Lualua, where he says he's not the fastest man on the pitch, but he's the fastest person I've ever seen in my life, over 10 yards. And that, I think, we see a lot in Adingra. And I always think about that when you talk about wingers, because Lualua back in the day, like in his prime against those like League One Championship defenses, was just like ripping the piss out of them, right? Like, and it was sheerly just on like FIFA style punt and run. Like, he was so much quicker than them between like the halfway line and the 18-yard box. And you saw that yesterday, where, as you say, I think Bradley had a really good game as well. But when Adingra did him like just once when that ball went past him and it was a case of explosive pace against explosive pace. There was no explosion from Bradley. Adingra is just unbelievable. For Lamptey, I'm sure in a straight race from the halfway line to the goal, Lamptey's probably matching anyone, like fine. But that initial burst has gone. With it must have obviously been the hamstring surgery that he had, like put him out for, I mean, we know like 2 odd years he was basically a non-entity for. This is what we're seeing now. And if that's the case, then like you've got to figure out what he's going to do with himself, because right wing back on the counter, he is not at this point. That's just not something he's going to be able to do if he can't get a burst like that. I mean, hell, even Solly March can over 5 yards compared to Lamptey, which is not great. So yeah, I all that to say, I basically agree with you entirely, and I think it's that initial burst that's really hurt Lamptey's danger.
Yeah, he's damaged goods, isn't he? Literally and figuratively, it's a bit worrying. But again, we've got no one else really that can play there at the moment because all of your options are injured. You have to wonder whether we just do see the approach of more flat back four and then just play your Buonanotte up in that right wing position like we've seen a little bit. But again, he's not exactly perfect there. I think he wants to play a bit more centrally, doesn't he? But it's not about perfection at this point in the season. It's about what can we do? Where can we lob a player and just hope that it works? Yeah, tricky. What was it like at Anfield? I saw some tweets that you put out about the atmosphere was not great from an away fan standpoint, but what was the overall view like?
Yeah, I did not expect that tweet to get any kind of traffic really, but it was actually like everybody seemed to have seen it and agreed, which is not so bad actually. But Rory the race car is asking someone to meet him down at St. John's. So if anyone has time, pop down to St. John's, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting comment. Okay, here we'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I mean, as you know, and most listeners will know, this is my first year being back home with Brighton as a Premier League football team. So I'm doing a lot of grounds I've never visited before, right? Like I've ticked off all of your shitholes, like your Stockports and your Rochdales and your Carlisles. But I've never been to Anfield before, never been to Old Trafford, never been to the Emirates. So they're like, it's still exciting for me to be like, oh, I'm going to go watch Brighton play at Anfield. Like that's weird for me to do that in real life. And outside of West Ham on the 2nd of January, which is understandable because 1, that stadium is awful for any kind of atmosphere, and 2, it was right after New Year's, and 3, the way they had us all sat. I know I said it at the time, but like they kind of had us like one pod here, like it was impossible anyway. At Anfield, I saw a lot of faces I've never seen before in the away crowd. And I don't know if you ever went to a long string of away games at any point in time, but you start seeing faces very quickly, like, and already like less than a season in, like I'm recognizing faces, some from 10 years ago, like that I used to see, and some new ones, but I'm seeing them almost every time, and I'm recognizing people as they come and go. And I didn't have that this week, and the atmosphere was absolutely shocking. I think we got about 4 songs like all game. Like it was what I would imagine sitting in the East Stand was like. And that's not like to shit on East Standers. Like you choose to sit there because it's the family stand. It's not as raucous and loud and rowdy, and like that's absolutely fine. Like I get it. But for an away game at Anfield, you need that kind of voice, and we had none of it. And I mean, I know for an absolute fact, there's a couple of people on Twitter saying they had Liverpool fans around them that were not removed by stewards even when reported. I know for a fact that I had a Liverpool fan sat right in front of me with his Brighton supporting grandson, who I assume probably is a season ticket holder at the Amex and just went to go to Anfield because that's his main team. Where's the atmosphere going to come from? The amount of people that were filming at length You'll Never Walk Alone was like a tourist drive. when they were all lined up doing the moment silence and the Never Walk Alone song, like I zoomed in and got like a really good like picture and short video of their backs, like the Albion backs. I'll post it in a bit. It was actually pretty good. But then I put my phone down and everyone else is just like, there's just phones everywhere, like watching it. Like I've never seen anything like that. Like, why? Like, it felt like a lot of tourists on a day out, and the atmosphere was shocking because of it. And obviously, I don't think it changes the result, right? Like at this point, but I don't know what happened there. There's far too many Liverpool fans in that away end. And questions have to be asked because the club are supposed to be super up on this and super strict and super like detailed and diligent in stopping these things from happening. Well, what the fuck happened yesterday? Because it was full of day trippers, and it's not all right if you're a Liverpool fan standing in the away end. That's not okay. So it was really poor.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's some things they can do about that, and then there's the other. When you play these bigger sides, you're going to get people that are going to slip in, either Liverpool or Brighton fans that are just going to go there for the experience. I don't know. It's weird. I'm against the phones thing at everything, like the old man that shouts at the cloud. Like, guy, you go to any like music concert or anything, and people just watch the thing on a video on their phone. It's like no one wants to watch a crappy video version of this. No one cares. Actually enjoy it. But yeah, I don't know. Whatever. I've got no interest in being fascinated by Liverpool's history and songs and anything like that, and I'd rather have nothing to do with them. But it kind of is a bit annoying, just in the sense that this was a pretty good, like, defensive, stalwart performance for the most part by the team, and it's like that was worth cheering on and giving a good atmosphere for, because regardless of whether you believe it or not, maybe that would have helped inspire the players a little bit more. And it sounds like we didn't really get much of that.
Yeah, I mean, it really could have. Like, you just don't know with these things, do you? But yeah, it was really poor. And like you say, like if it's Brighton fans that have just like got a season ticket because they live down south now and they want to watch some regular football, or whatever it is, like that's absolutely fine. And they obviously got their day trip out to Anfield, which is great for them, I guess. But it's depressing, like when you're stood in a crowd and nothing's happening, like no one is interested really. And I'm just as much of an old man as you, to be fair, Adam. That's why whenever you see anything I send over to you guys, it's always before a game. I'll take one picture of being at the ground and that's it, or a penalty. Always video pens, just because that's a good one to have. But yeah, no, I'm the same as you. Like outside of that, like it's not something that like I'd rather just watch it. Like I don't need the gram to know. Like I'm perfectly fine knowing that I was there. Like that's really all I need. First goal though, Danny Welbeck, unbelievable strike, Craig. Like, what did you make of that? Like 2 minutes in, 3 minutes in. I know there's a whole score too early thing, and we were never likely to romp home at that point. But I mean, what a start!
Yeah, and it was that a Dinger versus Bradley thing on the left hand side that Adam was talking about as well. Like, just give it to the live wire and he'll make something happen. And it's a great finish, right? Just bobbles around in the box. It's too early for people to have their bearings. Normally that happens to us. So it was very much okay, Danny Welbeck's just going to lash it into the top bins. Like, why not? And all of a sudden you start thinking, okay, there's something here, right? I think before the game, you would have gone, right, let's just batten down the hatches for the most part. We'll try and catch them later on in the game. But going 1-0 up so early on, like, has its benefits. But it was a great finish and just completely out of nowhere. Definitely stunned Anfield and probably half of the away end as well, based on what you said. So it was a really good start. And you're going, okay, because whenever we go 1-0 down, we're kind of a little bit hopeless, a little bit aimless. So going 1-0 up so early on, it gives you a little bit of hope, right? And a means to press on. But great finish. Again, and everything happens through the left-hand side and the Dinger at this point. So there's no surprise there. Just caught them off guard at the start of the game, which normally happens to us.
Yeah, I absolutely bloody love when Welbeck scores a banger. And it seems like the only version, right? We talked about this a lot. Just an easy chance, 1-on-1. Nah, we'll miss that one. But what about just some random shot that you shouldn't really be taking? It's just going to lash it in the corner. Yeah, perfect. Danny Welbeck. You know, it makes me wonder like what the game plan was from De Zerbi like prior to that, because obviously your game plan in every game is just to score a goal unless you're West Ham. But what would he have actually said the setup would have been if he hadn't scored that goal? Because obviously then Liverpool come out and they go nuts because they want to try and get back in, and we have to be a little bit more cagey. What if it was just 0-0? Would we have been a little bit more expansive with the football? Or would we have still sort of, gone into that counter-attacking setup that we did anyway? So that's the only sort of difference. But you're right. It was nice for a change for us to come out of the blocks properly as opposed to being the ones sleeping. And yeah, caught him off guard. It was a weird sort of ricochet, wasn't it? It just came back to Welbeck and he just lashed it.
And he absolutely belted it as well. It was a hell of a strike.
Was that the ENG route or not?
No. It was at the Cop end, which made it funny.
It was at the Cop end.
Yeah. So stopped their singing very quickly, though, which was fun. And 25 minutes we lasted until the goal came. Set piece. Shocker, right? Set piece or counter attack. Take your pick. Pick your poison. It's almost always one of the two. Bit of a mishap from Veltman with the random just flick a leg out and see where it goes. Turns out it goes to Luis Diaz, who was definitely offside if Veltman hadn't been the one who yeeted it to tap into the back of the net. I thought that overall, though, I thought that even between that and all the way up to half time, I thought that we were very much in this game. Like Adingra was causing them so many issues. Moda had a really good opportunity as well that forced a really good save. I thought that 1-1 was probably a fair reflection. The only reason I bring that up is I've seen a lot of people say, we could have lost by 8 yesterday, and I think that's a crazy take. I thought that 1-1 at halftime was honestly a pretty fair result. I thought we'd done all right.
Oh, look, if you want to do little stats, XG wise, it was a fairly logical result. If Liverpool had won it 3-1, sure, that could have also happened. But yeah, I despise Diaz. He's got an incredibly punchable face, doesn't he? Really annoying little cretin. But he made a good run. Just an unfortunate thing, just an annoying little thing. I think they score regardless, right? It was just a little bit unfortunate that they got that goal back so quickly. It would have been amazing, I think, if we could have got to half time and it's still been 1-0. Who knows what could have potentially happened? When people are saying it could have finished 8-0 or whatever it was, 8-1 or whatnot, there were quite a lot of chances that were squandered rather sort of unnaturally, like by Salah. A few spring to mind where he's sort of running and he just side foots it into Verbruggen. And of course, they had the goal that was an inch offside a little bit later on in the game. But, these things, we've been in the other end of this side of things, haven't we? Where it's like, well, yeah, we could have scored 4 and we scored none. It's just, that's just what occurs, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's football, isn't it? So, but yeah, I think they obviously had their chances. I think we also had a few chances as well, right? Like, I think there was one where Moda flashed it across the box, just waiting for someone. And those sort of bits, like Moda had a shot that was deflected as well. Like, you can play that game as much as you like, right? And say, well, actually, we had 2 or 3 chances and we scored those, and it would have been 8-4 or something like that. Like, it's all if, buts, and maybes, isn't it? So I think there's obviously a few chances they missed. I think you're right. If we get to half time and it's 1-0, right, it's a completely different game plan. They start questioning themselves as to whether they can actually get back into it, whilst giving them a bit of hope in the 28th, 29th minute is not great. But I thought it was a good performance, right? I mean, I don't really know if you're expecting to go there and just run the game for 90 minutes and win 3-0. Like, that's was never going to happen. So, even at half time, right, going in at 1-1, you're like, okay, there's still something here. You're not out of this yet.
And we were very much not out of it until obviously the 65th minute when the goal went in. Like, that's not one of those start slow classic Albion and concede in the first 5 minutes. Like, I remember turning to Brit and being like, all right, we've lasted 5 minutes. This is good. Like, we're out of that part of the funk. Like, 15 minutes later we conceded, but like that's all right. Like I thought that was okay. Yeah, I think that the second half, the big change for me from my side was Endo being asked to double up on a Dingra with Bradley. Totally changed the ability for us to break mainly because, as you say, Adam, Lamptey versus Gomez wasn't a contest. So once you doubled up on the left side and the right side was not really doing anything, it became much more of an attack versus defense game, didn't it? And it felt almost inevitable at that point that we were going to succumb to the constant pressure.
Yeah, it was a little bit annoying. I mean, I think that's just Klopp had more ways to change the game than De Zerbi had at his disposal, and yeah, right. They spotted the issue and they dealt with it. We didn't get really any kind of grasp back on the game until they'd scored their second goal, and even then they controlled the game for a good 10 to 15 minutes after that. They just didn't really give us a look in. As you say, there was no proper outlet. Obviously we started to see some changes from De Zerbi with Buonanotte, I think on minute 70, about 5 minutes after the goal from Salah, and we'll talk about that goal obviously. But what I thought was even more intriguing, maybe even the Fati thing, is that he then waited until the 83rd minute and the 90th minute to make more substitutions. When you could see there were tired legs, you could see there were players that maybe weren't doing what they could do. And I was a little bit confused why I didn't make changes earlier. But going back to their goal, kudos again to McAllister. Like the way that we were set up, you have to have an incisive kind of pass, or you just score some ridiculous banger to unlock the way in which we were playing and the defensive formation we had set up. And McAllister did just that. Like perfect, like cut through pass to Salah. Salah with a nice bit of control, and then a classic sort of Salah not very good finish that still just went in. And they deserved the lead.
It was really good, wasn't it? Like I think it's a couple of really incisive passes as well out to the right, and then McAllister just does what he does. But yeah, we know all about him, don't we? We know how good he is. And Salah actually finished that one. So yeah, he had a few chances, but that was the easiest one that came to him.
Well, I would argue that we didn't know much about him because Stephen Warnock on Sky Sports talked about how much of a magnificent find he's been for Liverpool, that they were managed to unearth the World Cup winning world-class centre midfielder from nowhere. No, that's genuinely true. Stephen Warnock did a whole little analysis on the fact that he has been and I quote, magnificent find for Liverpool, Alexis McAllister has been. He hadn't just won the World Cup 6 months before he came in, and pretty sure assisted the winner of that World Cup goal as well.
Diamond in the rough. It's more like finding a diamond in De Beers. Like it's not. It's like, how is that a surprise to anyone?
It's just like if anybody wants to just have a reason to be annoyed at the top six bias bullshit from Sky Sports, like and NBC and all of them, like I've just given you a little bit of rage bait there for the next 10 minutes to get angry about, because it's just beyond baffling that these things keep being said. But yeah, he was great yesterday. Very good send off. Like he came over, applauded the fans. Like he was, the consummate professional, really. Like he wasn't one of the ones who super celebrated when Salah scored, even and it wasn't even him who scored the goal. Like he was just kind of like he just high-fived one of the other players who went back to the thing. Like he's there's not
classy bloke, isn't he? Yeah,
very classy player. Bloke, everything in between. Got a feel for Barco though.
Sorry, can I just ask you on the goal? I don't know, any questions defensively on that goal? It was a great pass, but they caught us. Maybe this goes back to the man versus zonal piece, because Gross was tracking a runner, and then Dunk pushed out to try and block the pass from McAllister, and then the pass basically went just past Dunk, and then Gross wasn't fast enough to catch up with the runner, and it just cut that little seam in between. You could argue if Dunk never moved out of that position to close down, he's perfectly positioned to stop the pass. Did you see any issues with that defensive kind of bit of play?
In the first half, yes, especially it happened a few times before they scored. Like it was, if there was a goal coming, it was going to be exactly how they did it. If it wasn't from a set piece, because there was multiple times at our end in that first half that they. I mean, you saw the one that you were just talking about with Salah, like who suddenly came through one on one out of nowhere. That was the same thing. I think that was Van Heck who'd pushed forward that time, and it just created a tiny gap. And it may well have been McAllister again, the bastard who threaded it through.
Yeah.
Like, and there was a couple of times that Estepinian, Dunk, just everybody on that left side were caught out when a Dingra would go on a break, get caught by Bradley, and they would initiate a counter break, and they overloaded that side, and you saw it time and time again. And we were quite fortunate. I think Nunez put one like horribly over. He put one wide. Like one was a really good save. I think
He's
that was
such a donkey. That guy.
It was just in the first half alone. Like you saw it 3 or 4 times. Like you were like, okay, like this is definitely an issue. In 65 minutes in, it was exactly what we've been seeing down at the other end. So I suppose that's one of the problems with the design of the defending that we were doing. But at the same time, like over the last 3 or 4 years, as someone who watches a lot of football, not just Albion related, like I've watched a lot of Liverpool games because they tend to always be the ones that are on those specific times, and that's quite quintessential Liverpool Klopp football as well. Like it's not. It ain't just us. Like there's every other team in the league, probably barring Pep, like is going to have that happen to them this season and the last couple of years. So yeah, I think that we did a good job in limiting it to 2 when we were allowing them so many opportunities in that way. And big shout out to the Bruggen too, by the way. Like he had a rough time of it in the last couple of games. In the international break, it was a bit of a rough one for him. He had to put in a really good performance then against Germany, and he came back, got the start at Anfield, and I thought, other than that goal that wasn't a goal, which I need to still watch back as to how the hell that got underneath.
It was bad. It was bad keeping.
I thought he was superb other than that. Like there was a couple of excellent saves from him.
Incredible
really
stretch he made in 89th minute.
Unbelievable, yeah. And there was one at our end where he came out and they were convinced it was a goal because he was just going to take it around him, bit like Dybala was stealing Rome. And I don't know how he managed to get his hand to it, but he just kind of like noodled his arm around and just slapped it so hard it went out of play for a throw. So it just broke the breakup. Like that kind of decisiveness is something that we've lacked a little bit with the other goalkeeper. And for me, like I know it's so like such a boomer NFL analysis like point of view when you're like, I like that quarterback because he's 6'5". Like, I'm sorry.
Why are they Australian?
I don't know. But that difference in height is just unbelievable. Like the amount of balls he claimed from set pieces and high balls this weekend was outrageous. And you don't see that with Steele. Like you just don't. And those 3 inches, like 5'10" to 6'2", like make a big difference because he's all of a sudden bigger than most centre halves, like already, other than your massive ones. Like, and it made a big difference. And there was a couple of times when they were hammering us with pressure, and he just ruined the whole thing for him because someone would whip in a high ball for Nunez at the back post, and he would just float over and grab it, and that would be the end of it. And we've seen those balls give Steele no end of problem, whether it's against the Liverpool or against a Forest right there with Chris Wood and freaking Elanga on the other side. Like it causes problems all the time for him. So yeah, I thought he played really well.
Yeah, I mean, he was this. I'm not being rude. This goalkeeper conversation is just done at this point. Like it is Verbruggen. He's young enough where you are going to get maybe a little lapse in concentration, maybe a mistake, and obviously he was bailed out in this one in the game yesterday. But outside of that, he's just he's far more competent goalkeeper. I think everyone can see that at this point. I wouldn't be shocked if De Zerbi played him every game for the rest of the season, but I also wouldn't be shocked if he just give Steele a nice run of 3 games or whatever his pattern was before, just because who knows what he's going to do at this particular point. But yeah, I feel a lot better when Verbruggen is between the posts.
Yeah, it's a dead and buried conversation, isn't it, at this point? So yeah, there's really genuinely nothing more to add. I thought, yeah, he was great yesterday. But again, he's 21. He's going to make mistakes, right? Like it, just because he's our number one doesn't mean he's just impenetrable, right? He is going to have those, and he needs to learn. But he's our number one goalkeeper, and it shouldn't be any different.
It was quite amusing watching the subs warm up. This is one of those things that you see at the ground and don't get to see on the TV, right? Like it's like the little snippets, but it was quite fun watching Buonanotte and Barco stand warming up for just almost the entire half. After about 50 minutes, they just stood there. Barco was out full kit wanker from the beginning, like no messing about, and he just stood there. And I turned to Brit and I was like, I think Barco's going to come on, like he's fully stripped off, like ready. Obviously, we didn't see him until 91 minutes. But one, it's nice to see him and Buonanotte together. It's another one of those Albion things, right? Like we do a lot of work to make sure that this integration is good and it's quick and it's seamless. And obviously this Barco Buonanotte thing, like just like the Buonanotte Alexis thing, like it's just like the little genius things that a lot of clubs don't nail that the Albion keep doing. And we'll get to that as well shortly because I've just announced the annual profits. But it was very fun to see. They're obviously already best buds because they just were stuck to each other, like best friends, like unbelievable. But talk about players that are ready and aren't ready. I've never seen a bunch of pressure just immediately let up than poor Valentin Barco for 6 minutes of injury time. We kept pushing it out to him, didn't we? We were hoping he was going to be the guy that exploited something because that ball just kept getting sprayed out to him one-on-one against Bradley, and it just failed every single time. Like, do you think that you would look to start him soon and actually see like get him some minutes, or do you think he's going to be a player that we, even if we get a bunch of injuries, he's still not going to be one that we play until next season?
His Barco was a bit worse than his bite.
Christ.
I mean, he was awful. It was a horrible introduction for just that brief. I can't imagine how hard it is to come into that game in a league you've not played in against the current number one team in the country who are comfortably up at home to then try and come on and try and make a difference. But he just wasn't there. He wasn't there. His touch, his timing, everything completely off. Now he's only going to get better by playing more. So yeah, I think I would want to play him more in some of these games. Just bleed him in with some minutes here and there. Give him 20 minutes against Sanso, 30 against another, whatever you want to do. The other thing is it does open up, some movement that we talked about a little bit before, because if you don't want to play Lamptey and you don't necessarily want to play Buonanotte out on the right wing, you could switch Adingra back to the right where he played when Mitoma was fit, and then you can bring Barco on in that left-hand side position, and then you've got two players that are going to be fairly comfortable sprinting up and down the wing, and arguably, a better solution than Lamptey and Adingra. But who knows? He's got to show some capabilities of actually having a first touch before we do much more of that.
Let me just ask as well, Craig, real quick.
Yeah, go on.
You can definitely talk about Barco as well, but I want to come to you with a player that definitely looks ready, and that's Carlos Baleba yesterday. Mm-hmm. We need to see a lot more of him, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And we will, right? Because with Gilmour out now, it's sort of that pairing of, you can have Baleba and Moda in there, you can have Baleba and Gross in there, which is probably going to happen, right? It has to happen now. Remember De Zerbi saying he wasn't ready at the start and needs to come in, and you start to see the fruits of that labor now towards the back end of the season, where he's just everywhere, right? and just has that energy and dynamism that I always talk about anyway. Just being able to carry the ball, be quite explosive, but also just break up play and run forward with it is something that we haven't seen since the Basuma days, which is always a likely comparison. So yeah, it's really good. We're going to see more of him. We kind of have to. There's no real rotation there. So we're looking forward to seeing that a lot more. Back to 30 seconds on Barco. It doesn't help that he was pinged the ball 4 times in 60 seconds either, right? So you've come on, like Adam said, the scene is set and you go, right, you've just come on, you're 19 years old, you've never played in this league before, you're at Anfield, and he's been absolutely pinging the ball four different times over and over again, expecting something to happen. So it wasn't exactly it was a baptism of fire. It wasn't an easy thing, but it just seemed to just be peppered with the ball and go, right, make something happen, make something happen. That's still a lot of pressure. And, you know, he's not ready. We know that he's not ready, but I don't think he was helped that he was just given the ball every single time and going, right, make something happen.
Why do you not bring Ansu Fati on instead? Like, I don't get it. It's like, that's a player that is comfortable on this stage. Well, I say comfortable. He's been crap, isn't he? But
that you can ping the ball and at least take on the man, right? I think that the Barco thing is Barco's got a wicked cross on him. We know that. We've seen it already. But like, you want someone to take on and commit a couple of players, right? To release other players, especially that late in the day. It's a confusing one for me too.
Yeah, it was a bit of a gutter, really, because I think that Fati is probably better placed to try and take on his man. You know, if you've watched all those like YouTube highlights of Barca or anything else, like I looked at just a little bit today because I hadn't watched anything about him really, but like he's never been a beat your man player. He's like Alexis McAllister, actually. He plays really similar to him, but out wide. Like he's very similar. He's very technically tidy, a bit like Buonanotte as well. Like he's very, very tidy, but he doesn't have bursts of pace like that, like what you need for that last couple of minutes to like make a difference. Like it was a weird one. And that's why I think he looked so effective against Wolves, because they were quite happy to just let him do it, which is great for us because it turns out, like you said, Craig, he had a wicked cross on him and we almost ended up snatching a draw from that and taking it to extra time. But yeah, it was a rough one for him. It felt
that's
like
right. He did play against Wolves, didn't he? Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, for like 8 minutes as well. But yeah, I think it was much more of a him, like an Ansu Fati option. Evan Ferguson, again, did absolutely nothing for the 12 or 13 minutes he was on.
Missed a penalty for Ireland as well on the break. The guy
22
can't buy a goal,
games
can
now.
he?
22 games without a goal. Yinky starts against Brentford. I do. I think they're going to play him.
Why though?
I think they will. I think he's going to rest Welbeck and play Ferguson on Wednesday.
Oh, I really hope he doesn't.
See, what to play Welbeck at Arsenal, I assume, right?
Yes.
So,
I mean, maybe he goes Ferguson and Fati start. Oh, God, I would like for us to score against Brentford though, and that almost feels like we're setting ourselves up to absolutely not score. Statistically, we won't score with those two in the team. Yeah, speaking of players that don't score, Kyle Lallana nearly got the equaliser, didn't he, at his old club? That was real close. That was at your end as well, wasn't it?
It was. Like I was trying to portray the significance of if that had gone into Brit, with Lallana being kind of like Klopp's first baby, that he kind of like just adored more than anyone, to then like dent his title hopes would have just been. Craig, you say the stage was set for Barco. That would have been like truly like
yeah.
Unbelievable.
They wouldn't have wheeled him out at every opportunity at Sky Sports, would they? After that,
no, definitely not. But like we had chances in that last 6 or 7 minutes. Like Liverpool, but I know it's such a I hate saying it, but like God, like we miss the players we're missing, don't we? Like a Mitoma, a Pedro in that last 6 minutes. Someone probably does something enough to create a really serious chance. Like. It's just brutal seeing like every time you have a 2-week international break and it's like surprise, like you already know that you've not got this one and now 2 more are gone. Like F you, no more fun. Like this season is just absolutely sucked, hasn't it? Like for injuries. I know others are dealing with it too. There seems to be like a 5 or 6 set of teams like in this division that are just like absolutely hammered with an unprecedented amount of injuries, and we're one of them. Our opponents on Wednesday are another. Like what? Like it just sucks, doesn't it? Like I know there's nothing more to say. It's not exactly astute analysis, but like it fucking sucks. Like that we can't see this team strength.
You know it's bad when I'm like sat there like the Wolverine meme with the picture, and it's got Solly March's photo in it. Like I see, like I'm. Even Solly back would be like a blessing. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but maybe this goes on to the conversation that is probably on everyone's lips at the moment. Should we have invested in more players coming in? De Zerbi is clearly furious with the lack of depth he has in the team, and he thinks it's potentially costing him the building of his legacy. I think if you want to put it on as big a term as that. What are our thoughts there? And what are our thoughts with De Zerbi? Because I think what's been interesting is De Zerbi's been untouchable, absolutely untouchable. And I think you've had a lot of people, maybe ourselves included, that would have sort of, dived in front of a bullet for him a few months ago. I'm starting to see that tide turn fairly drastically, like fairly quickly and social media is not representative of the actual fan base. I know that. But some of the ways he's been talking lately and the ways he's been sort of coming out against, you could argue against the club, against the hierarchy, has upset some people. And I think it's soured them very quickly on some of De Zerbi's attitude. Like where are you guys at with the relationship with Daddy De Zerbi right now?
I think I'm normally just unchanged, to be fair. Like, I think you can go way back to when we first appointed him, knowing full well that this is a guy that is brazen, will speak his mind, will challenge authority and maybe the hierarchy themselves. And we're just seeing it maybe a little bit more in the press and in the media than maybe we'd like to. And I think that's it, right? Those conversations, regardless of manager, would always happen behind the scenes. We're just seeing it a little bit more because he's a little bit outspoken and he is Italian, right? So you are seeing that happen in front of media and in the public, as opposed to that happening in private, which it absolutely would have happened anyway. Is that a good look for the club? Probably not. But at the same time, you knew what you were signing up for, both from the club's perspective, but also from De Zerbi's perspective, right? They both knew what they were signing up for and the counterparts. If someone's unhappy, then obviously you have that conversation. It doesn't change how I feel about De Zerbi. I want him to stay 100% and I want to continue that work. We all know that we do need to invest in this squad, De Zerbi or no De Zerbi. So, and we'll come on to the accounts right at the end. But, there's an ability to support and back the manager here. I think he's just asking for a little bit more, just publicly, so that we're able to do so. It's managerial pressure on the hierarchy. It's not something that's devastating in any way. You've seen it multiple times. He's just letting us know how he feels, and that is De Zerbi.
Yeah, I basically fully agree with Craig. I definitely still want De Zerbi here. Love him. Think he's absolutely the answer going forward. I think that part of this is obviously the media maneuver to generate interest of the amount of teams that are going to be obviously showing an interest in him this summer, right? Gets good clicks, gets good views, gets great engagement when you've got a Brighton manager that has been linked to a Liverpool managerial post right on the eve of Brighton versus Liverpool saying that I need the club to match my ambition and we need to have a conversation about it, right? It's perfect for them. That's all. They just want engagement, and Liverpool fans will give them that out the arse. So, for me, he's not changed his tune once. So to me, I worry the club has sold him a line a little bit and have not fulfilled it in a way that he was hoping or expecting. That's my only concern here. And if that's true, that doesn't reflect poorly on De Zerbi. That reflects poorly on the club. But you've also started to see a rather unprecedented thing, and that's Tony Bloom coming out and sending these subliminal, not so subliminal messages to the media, almost in not retaliation, because that seems like an offensive word to use. It's like a game of Battleship, right? You're just peeking around, trying to see what you can find. They're both doing it. De Zerbi's doing it with a sledgehammer. Bloom is doing it in typical poker player Bloom fashion. But he came out to TalkSport 3 or 4 months ago and said that he expects a busy summer and we don't need to sell anyone. Couldn't be more of an obvious line that he wants to bring in investment. One of the key parts of his entire conversation when we talk about our annual profits this year that are coming in at 122 million pound in profit this year. That doesn't include Caicedo or Sanchez transfers. Let that sink in for the listeners. That doesn't include another 150 million pound in transfer fees yet. He's came out and said, we now have a very solid platform to continue to make significant progress on the pitch by investing in our squad. Like, the dream is to regularly challenge for a European place and for silverware, and we're very proud of Roberto and the work he and his staff has done. Like, that can't be more, like, that is sledgehammer type approach of throwing messages out to the media too. You're talking about profits and sustainability, and one of the main things you come out with goes basically going, we've got loads of money to spend in the summer, by the way, and we're going to back our manager. Like, it's all a load of nothing, I think. Like, I think we're clearly going to spend in the summer. We have to, Roberto or no Roberto. I think it's all just posturing from either side. And that's what you get when you've got a manager that is as ambitious as Roberto De Zerbi. You're not going to get those epithets from a Chris Hughton or a Graham Potter, but you are going to get them from a Roberto De Zerbi or a Jose Mourinho or a manager that wants to win trophies, essentially, as opposed to just being happy to beat it.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And by the way, for those that don't know the quotes that sort of came out, I'll paraphrase here a little bit. He was asked about signing a new deal. Again, his deal runs until summer of next year, 2025. He said, signing a new deal at the moment, no. I need to speak to Tony Bloom about the plan for the club in order to decide my future. I want to know what the project is. I want to keep my ambition. My relationship with the club, the fans, and the players here at Brighton can't change based on my future. What we did is history. No one can forget it. And then goes on to say, I think there's one more quote. I want to keep my ambition and my motivation. I really live 24 hours a day for football. I want to understand Brighton's plan and project, because if I don't feel comfortable, I can't stay anymore. So I agree. I agree with what you both have said. Like, you get this kind of statements from very ambitious managers, but that's a lot. That's a bit much, if we want to frame it like that, to come out and say publicly to the press and the media, after you've come out multiple times and basically said you've been disappointed in the lack of ambition that was shown in January by the club. And it's almost, this is his I told you so moment. I told you we didn't have the squad depth. I told you needed to sign players in January. Look at us now. Like, we don't have the players that I can bring into games. We're going to lose by fine margins. We've now got a couple of other games this coming week. Like, I don't know. It's frustration, right? This frustration is built somewhat understandably for De Zerbi. But is it true frustration, or is it just a bit of a mismanagement of expectations? Because I sort of feel like it might be that. I don't think maybe he was deceived by Bloom and co. Come in here, we're going to throw a ton of money at you and we're going to give you everything you need. Please come in. I don't think it was that. I just don't know if he knew the standard club approach to how we approach transfers and approach bringing players in. And I also don't think the club truly knew about the stature of the departures that was going to happen. Like, I don't think anyone really knew that we'd shift both Caicedo and McAllister in the same window, like officially, for that amount of money. In some ways, that created this problem in and of itself. Like, if Caicedo didn't go, De Zerbi's not complaining. He's now seeing, I'm a player down. You've got all this money. Why haven't you bought me what I need? I told you I need more players. It's just more about how much it's the pride damaging has hurt him. He's very prideful, right? I think we can all see that. Does he feel like he's been slighted? Because if he feels like he's been slighted, it doesn't matter what they do now. He will leave. Whether it's at the end of his contract or it's for one of these other big jobs. If it feels like it can be repaired, then they can come to an agreement. Again, we can splash the cash, as you've said, in summer, like we've talked about, and he will be happy. You just hope, like, I think as a fan base, we hope he doesn't make a knee-jerk reaction and basically says, nah, you've pissed me off, I'm done. I'm going to go somewhere where they treat me like I want to be treated and have the same level of ambition that I do. But I've seen a horribly alarming amount of people come out in the last few days saying, I'm done with De Zerbi and his attitude. And actually, I'd quite like Potter back. And look, this is not a future I wish to live in.
No, I don't think any of us do, right? But it's just, again, we just need to back him, right? What we're talking about is I don't want to extend my contract before, like, beyond the end of next season, right? So this summer is important, and it was important last summer as well when we lost Caicedo. I think my personal opinion is we didn't expect to lose him. It was just too much money, right? In which case you're then looking at a Caicedo and a decent, maybe even a Belabor in the midfield, and all of a sudden you're right, he's not that unhappy. But it is what it is. It's happened. I don't think there's been a slight in any way. I don't think there's been a deception in any way. I think each party,
he might. That's the problem.
Well,
he
that's
might think
yeah,
it.
Yeah. And I completely get that. And I think that's why it's important for the summer to be, okay, Roberto, what do you want? What do you need? We've come out multiple times on TalkSport, annual accounts, everything, that we're going to splash the cash. So where is it going? And what do you want to do? What do you need? Not necessarily go out and get whoever you want, but get someone that fits the profile that we need, and we'll back you. In which case, if that happens this summer, De Zerbi goes, absolutely, I'll sign on, because you have met all of the demands that I have put out publicly and privately. Like you said, if his reputation and his pride is damaged, then there's a little bit more sewing that needs to be done there. But I guess we'll see, and we won't know, because that's going to happen behind closed doors potentially.
I think De Zerbi is emotionally intelligent enough to be able to mend almost any bridge with the hierarchy, and we all know that Tony Bloom absolutely is. Got to remember, Tony Bloom has a good relationship with Gus Poyet right now. Always had done. It's not him that had that problem with unable to rebuild bridges. So they have a good relationship with Potter. Like, they don't.
Poyet's available, actually. He just got canned from Greece. Maybe we could go.
Yeah, I mean,
really
unsurprising, really. What a shocking nation that is. They've can't believe they won the Euros. Even when they won it, they shouldn't have won it, really. But they got beat by freaking Georgia, didn't they?
I'm pretty sure Greece's Euro run and win is the tactical foundation for Southgate's England. Like, that is all he's dreamt of. That is his absolute dream, to replicate Greece's performance in the Euros.
It feels a little bit like that. Yeah, it's depressing when you say it like that, because I see a lot of similarities in the way they play. All right, De Zerbi, international break. Talked a little bit about the accounts. There's not much more to be added, really. We made loads of money, and we're going to make a lot more in the next one. Like, that's all we really need to say. Talked about De Zerbi a lot. Brentford next, Arsenal at the weekend. For those unable to get tickets for Brentford, it's on TV, surprisingly enough, this week. So you can watch it wherever you're watching from. And of course, that also means you can head down to your local Green King Sports Pub. You like that segue? They are showing every Albion game that's televised. Of course, this includes Brentford. So hop on down, watch it with your mates wherever you are. Random Wednesday night football, and you'll probably be able to see a bunch of other Premier League football on multi-screen as well. So it can't ever hurt to go and watch that. What else have we got? Anything else? Is that it? Really? I think that's about it on my side. Pedro should be back in the coming days, weeks, very short term. There was a conversation about him possibly making a squad for this one, but not quite being ready yet. So he's very much back in training, and Ciso will be back for Arsenal, apparently, barring any setbacks. So some of them are slowly but surely coming forward.
Does James Milner still exist?
No.
I feel like he's had a injury that he's going to come back from in 10 days for about 4 months.
He's been sacrificed to Carlos Baleba. That's how he now starts. That's it. He's got the footballing brain of James Milner.
But this is the point of the season where you do want a James Milner, don't you? This is actually when you need him. It's the Batman quote sort of springs to mind as well. It's not the one we deserve, but it's the one we need. Yeah, I'll bring back James Milner. We need Milner. As bleak as it is to say that, but I would like to add him into the mix, even if it's just to give some other players a little bit of a break with your Moders and Grosses and Belabors. They're going to see a lot of game time in the coming weeks. So hopefully we see him back. The first time we see João Pedro back in a Brighton shirt is going to feel euphoric. It's going to feel euphoric. I've missed him too much. I know we talked about this before, but I just hope he comes back and just bangs one in as soon as he's back. God, that would be just such a relief. Because he's the future. He's the future, isn't he? He's still so young. He's the guy that scored with. He's just. Oh, I miss him.
And you could start next season with Pedro, Matoma, March as your three, and it's a again, we talked about it earlier, just the amount of injuries and the potential for who we have on the books to be as good as we are. It is a shame that none of those three are even there.
Locatelli will be joining them as well. So those rumors are already coming out. Don't worry about that.
This is my legacy. It doesn't matter.
You literally heard it here first. Yeah.
Well, hold on. Aren't we still signing that one Belgian bloke, the guy that played in the Belgian league that signed for Southampton that you sort of were obsessed with?
Which one was that?
Oh,
no, that was
Paulo Nacho.
Yeah. God, what a bust he was. I was desperate to see him play in the
He
Premier
was
League.
like a football manager wonder kid for you, like, but in real life. And he fizzled out like a, God, what was the famous Freddie Adu, you know?
I don't know what my cat is doing either. Like, just insane. Like, he's losing his mind. Yeah, he was Dennis Undav before Dennis Undav was cool. He was the one
Dennis
banging
Undav
in
as well. That's
50
right.
goals a season. He was banging in 50 goals a season in Belgium just before Undav was. That's why I wanted to see what he could do. Turns out not much. He was quite bad, but he lived in
He's in Turkey now. Funny enough.
Feels like where shit strikers go to die, doesn't it?
Feels right. Yeah.
No offense to him, but Undav will 100% go to, because he's part Turkish, I guess, right? So he's definitely going to go to Turkey at some point. But he scored a 97th or something minute equalizer this weekend to bring it to 3-3. I think he's on 15 goals for the season in the Bundesliga at this point. Where's that guy? I didn't see him in a Brighton shirt, but it'd be interesting to see what happens with him as well. I know we got way ahead of ourselves again. We're about to wrap things up, but yeah.
Is that 15 goals, 7 assists in a year? Oh, yes, it's good.
It's not bad, is it? Yeah.
It's been a proper like fall and rise as well of Stuttgart, ain't it? Like, I remember when they were like monster team in the early 2000s when I was younger, and then they just died. Like, they've got real, like, their financial troubles, like player troubles, everything. And now I believe they're third, aren't they, in the Bundesliga again? Like, all of a sudden, like, they've just,
I feel it really happens with the German teams. You see Schalke like at the bottom of the second Bundesliga and stuff. Like, these teams, when they do go up and down, like, they really do struggle.
It's mad too, isn't it? Because, like, I mean, I don't think they're wrong either. Like, this 50+1 like ownership model of the German teams, but like, they don't half crow on about it compared to the Premier League and how great it is. But like you say, like, when it goes wrong for them, like, it can be like club killing. Like, look at is it Kaiserslautern? Like,
they used to be big, didn't they? Back in Pro Evo days, they were great.
Yeah, they were. They really were. Like, same thing though. They died a death. Like, everything went wrong for them. Hamburger SV or whatever they were unbelievably good. Now look at them; they're sat in the middle of that league as well. Yeah, there's a lot of teams in that league that were.
Werder Bremen used to be massive team as well, and they fell out. Didn't they have Closer for like they had a really strong.
They had
team.
a really good team. Yeah,
this is a new tangent for us, by the way. We're talking about
we've gone up
Bundesliga.
Yeah. This is the way I expect to end the show.
It's the Uwe Hunnemeyer legacy that we've got.
Yeah.
What a man he was. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway,
so we will be back. Yeah, we will be back post Brentford, post Arsenal. Probably not post Brentford on its own. Will we be doing one midweek? Probably not. But we will be back to talk about both of them regardless. So have a wonderful week. Lots of football coming thick and fast this week with all your Easter games that were on today as well. For those of you who have listened live and are commuting tomorrow, shit ton of football on Easter Monday. And then Premier League starts again Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then we're back into the league again on Saturday. So it literally is absolutely crazy amount of football going on right now. And leagues are essentially being decided up and down the country.
Enjoy it. This is good living. This is good living. And we get a European competition in the summer as well. This is we can feast on this stuff. Let's just hope we finish top table.
Yeah,
top
we
half.
can. We can. One more thing, Dewsbury Hall looked excellent today. Really good. Like, we better hope that Leicester are absolutely effed financially, because he is very good.
How do we squeeze him and Locatelli in the midfield with Baleba and the rest?
That's Deserved's problem, not mine.
Cheers all. Thanks for listening.
Okay.
Thank you.